Hi, moral recap here. Today I'm going to explain about a South Korean Thai drama film called Final Recipe. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins with Chef Hao, the owner of the Red Phoenix restaurant. We see Chef Hao's grandson, Mark, tasting ingredients and vegetables at the marketplace. A few minutes later, Mrs. Wang, an old lady who helps Mr. Hao, comes back in with the food Hao had just prepared. She tells him the customers requested something with less fat. Hao then gets angry and chases the customers out of the restaurant. While the customers are leaving, Mark walks in with the groceries he had bought for Hao. The customer is Mr. Lee, Mr. Hao's landlord, who is there to collect rent for the place. After the meal, Mr. Lee requests the rent, which Hao hasn't paid in months. They talk about how the restaurant never has any customers, and how Mr. Hao should be interested in what the customers want, but Hao refuses and says he won't reduce his food quality for aesthetics, which people like. Mr. Lee has no choice but to give Hao 2 weeks to pay the rent before eviction. Hao gets devastated and starts to drink, and even ends up collapsing. A while later, Mrs. Wang and Mark are in the hospital with Hao. Mark complains that he doesn't want to let the restaurant get taken away from them and says he'll talk to Mr. Lee. He then hears a cooking competition advert playing on the TV behind him. The food competition is called Final Recipe, and the prize money is worth $1 million. Mark then makes up his mind to join the competition to win, so he'll have enough money to save the restaurant. He begs Mrs. Wang for her support and some money to go to Shanghai, and thanks to him, the show became a success. That night, Julia walks into her house where David is sitting. He's worried and tells her it's because her doctor from the fertility clinic had called earlier. Meanwhile, Mark is on a call with Mrs. Wang, and when he asks after his granddad, she tells him he's alright and not to worry. Mark then thanks her for all her help. After the call ends, Mrs. Wang talks to the doctor, who reveals that nothing can be done about Hao's health condition. Teammates include Cowdy, Sean, and Park. They make small talk and try to get along just before the round commences. The second round begins, and the theme of the round is pig. The round goes on for a while. When Mark's team is done with their dish, Mark decides to taste the pork steak his team made and realizes that it tastes better without any extra sauce. But Cowdy disagrees. She tries to add the sauce, but Mark puts his hand in the way and gets injured. The judges then arrive to taste their food, and Cowdy realizes Mark was right about not adding the sauce. With that, they make it to the second round. After the competition has ended, to get her more information on Dimitri, Jack reminds her about a previous investigation, but she tells him to focus on Dimitri instead. In the second round of the competition, the contestants are given a large amount of money to shop with, and in turn, prepare a royal dish for the judges, who are said to be the royals of the cooking world. Cowdy and Sean argue, and the team gets disbanded. Following Park's advice, Mark takes his share of the money and wants to return home. While at the airport, Mark watches an interview with David, who tells his audience about how he left home to become a chef, despite his father being against it. He tells Mark what to use on his burns, and they bid each other goodbye. The third round commences the next day, and in this round, each person has to work on their own to get to the final round. The host tells the 4 contestants that the theme is noodles, and that they'll be cooking for the Grand Master herself. When they are asked to begin, everyone except Mark starts cooking. He stands there for a while, then suddenly gets a flashback of when one night, Mr. Hao leaves little Mark alone in the kitchen to attend to someone. Mark then gets into an accident in the kitchen, which causes a fire. His granddad rushes him to the hospital to get treatment. While he's there, he tries calling David, but Julia answers the phone. She tells Mr. Hao that David is too busy with a show, so he can't answer the call. Mr. Hao gets angry and tells Julia to tell David that his son is dead. Back in the present, Chef Hao wakes up in his hospital room and sees Julia there. He puts on his glasses to confirm that it's her, and then tries to run away from her. While running, he sees Mark on a TV. Mark is on the same cooking show Hao forbids. Mrs. Wang sees him and tries to turn off the TV, but it's already too late. Later, in Hao's wardroom, Julia tries to convince him to go back to Shanghai with her. She plans to reunite Mark with David, which gets Hao angry, and he tells her to get out. Julia gets back to Shanghai and invites Mark to her office, referring to Mark by his real name and not Dmitri, and he gets scared because he thinks he might get disqualified, but she tells him not to worry about that and asks Mark to have a seat. She explains everything about his father and grandfather and how David had left. That evening, Mark calls his granddad to confront him. Mark is upset and wants to know why his granddad had lied to him. His granddad tells him that he just wanted the best for Mark, but he yells at Mr. Hao, saying he only wanted what was best for himself. Mark hangs up, and in a fit of rage, he throws his phone into the lake. At the airport, Julia is seen talking to David about the sudden change in venue from Shanghai to Singapore. David then assures her that he's going to win the competition before leaving her. Julia's assistant walks to her and tells her that Dmitri checked out of the hotel and is nowhere to be found. Julia now has to drive around town looking for him. After a while, it begins to rain. David describes his dish to the judges. He had made 15 dishes, one for each of his son's birthday that he had missed. Mark then presents his single dish to the judges, but tells them that he didn't cook for them, but for David. He picks up the plate and presents the dish to David, who is confused at first until Chef Hao shows up and asks him to taste the food that his son had prepared. David tastes the dish, and with tears in his eyes, he embraces his son, whom he has missed so much. Mr. Hao then joins in the hug. In the end, Mark narrates because no one can feed you better than the ones you love. We see Mark in the kitchen of the Red Phoenix restaurant. Chef Hao has passed away, and David is now perfecting his recipes. He sits at a table with Julia and his dad, who is proud of him, and they all happily eat together. Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel grow. Thank you for watching.